Projekt Guru.
Всем привет! С вами Zak Novak на радиостанции Novorossia Rocks. Welcome to Novorossia Rocks Radio Station. This is Zak Novak, your American in downtown Donetsk. The program is called Projekt Guru, and Guru is in the house as always. Guru, thank you so much for all the hard work that you do. Andre, my engineer, let's get to it. Our sister republic, Lugansk, attack once again civilian areas as well as military positions targeted. Nazi Ukrainian forces backed by the Obama regime once again targeted civilian areas using weapons such as tripod, anti-tank, gunfire, aiming for civilians. Drunk Kiev junta fighters along with American trainers having target practice on innocent civilians on the sleepy village of Lozovoye village. The positions of the freedom fighter forces of the Lugansk People's Republic were shelled 3 times over the 24 hours, the local defense ministry reported on Friday. In particular, the Kalinovka settlement area twice came under fire, opened from the Luganskoye urban-type settlement. The fire was opened from small arms and heavy machine gun fire. According to LPR, People's Army, the Nazi Ukrainian security forces also opened fire from tripod-mounted man portable anti-tank gun on the Lozovoye village. Guru Andre, Erdogan's nightmare, a Kurdish state. The Kurds, often referred to as the largest ethnic group without a state, have become the first ground force to shatter the myth that Daesh, ISIS, was unstoppable and invincible. Their success on the Iraqi and Syrian battlefields has fueled fears, particularly in Turkey, that the Kurds would try to establish an independent state. But do they want it? The Syrian Kurds are unlikely to push for greater autonomy since they are scattered all over the country. That's very interesting, Guru. They would agree to equal rights and freedoms with Syria's Arab population, proportional representation in the post-war institutions, and a so-called cultural autonomy. In February, Salah Muslim, co-chairman of the Democratic Union Party, PYD, reiterated that the PYD was not trying to create an independent political entity in northern Syria and only champions constitutional rights for the Kurds. We do not want an independent Kurdish state neighboring Turkey, he asserted, adding that Turkey's claims to the contrary show that Ankara is Kurdophobic. The Iraqi Kurds have a high degree of autonomy and are well represented in federal institutions. Jalal Talabani, the founder of one of the leading Kurdish political parties, the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, PUK, served as Iraq's president from 2005 until 2014. The Kurdish language is one of the 2 official languages in the country. Iraqi Kurdistan receives 17% of the national budget and is as sovereign as a political entity could be without formally seceding, but experts say that Erbil, in fact, wants Iraq to remain undivided. Ankara's relationship with its Kurdish minority dramatically differs from Baghdad and Damascus. For their part, the Turkish authorities have never acknowledged that the Kurds have rights, Kalal Issa, the PYD representative in France, said. Ankara views anyone who is advocating for their rights as terrorists. At the moment, the Turkish government is waging a war against those people who do not want to call themselves Turks and live primarily in Kurdish areas of Turkey. In 2015, the Turkish government launched a military operation against the Kurdish Workers' Party, the PKK, after months-long ceasefire collapse. The campaign has largely been condemned as a humanitarian disaster. Hey Ukraine, buzz off, your days are numbered. European countries are losing patience over Ukraine. The upcoming Dutch referendum on EU association with Kiev may give a clear signal that Europe is ready to get rid of the irritating issue. Europe is challenging the idea of supporting the Ukraine government. Voters at the upcoming Dutch referendum on EU association with Ukraine may for the first time openly stand against the EU's policy toward Ukraine, an article in the Wall Street Journal read. The traditionally tolerant Dutch will stage a national advisory referendum next month on whether the European Union should grant associate status to Ukraine, observer John Vinokur wrote. And according to polls, they are likely to tell Ukraine to buzz off. He understands that the calls are decreasing in Europe to extend anti-Russian sanctions, an issue which will be brought up in several months. The author also criticized efforts by German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande to establish constructive dialogue with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Merkel and Hollande appear battered. At the same time, the journalist highlighted the fact that Europe is getting tired of the Ukrainian issue. Ukraine, is an enormous irritant. There are countries that think, couldn't Ukraine be bargained off in some way? A high-ranking official in Brussels told the author, Ukraine, you are finished. Andre, listen to this. Public support for Vladimir Putin to serve another term as president has hit its highest level in 4 years, a survey by the state-run pollster showed on Thursday. 74% of Russians would vote to re-elect Vladimir Putin as president, according to the poll by VT. Putin dominates state media in Russia and is widely expected to contest the next presidential election in 2018. If he wins, it would be his 4th term as president. He has capitalized on conflicts in Ukraine and Syria to boost his popularity, and his message that Russia is again a force to be reckoned with on the world stage has gone down well with the voters, Guru. VT said Putin's approval ratings had risen among many social groups, including young people. It also showed his support levels has risen sharply in recent years. In 2012, in the same polling series, only 40% of Russians said they would vote for the Russian leader. Even among those who think the president has yet fulfilled many of his pre-election promises, 70% are willing to support Putin. An independent Russian pollster, the Levada Center, gives Putin similar ratings. Liberal opposition politicians say the figures are unfairly boosted by the fact that state TV, where most Russians get their news, affords Putin blanket and favorable coverage while largely ignoring them. Should Putin win the 2018 election, he would have the right to serve until 2024. By that stage, he would be over 70 years old and come up against the constitutional limit, barring him from serving more than 2 consecutive terms. After his first 2 terms as president, Putin in 2008 made way for his protege, Dmitry Medvedev, to serve as president before returning to the Kremlin himself in 2012. Viva Putin. Our sisters, comrades, fell yesterday. Marxist-Leninist group claims attack on Istanbul junta police station. 2 attackers killed, 2 police slightly wounded. The Revolutionary People's Liberation Party Front, DHKP, of Turkey, a Marxist-Leninist group that regularly launches attacks against police and embassies, has issued a statement today claiming credit for an attack on a police station in Istanbul, saying that the attackers were brave female liberation fighters. The 2 women threw a hand grenade at the station and both had guns, opening fire on the station. 2 police were slightly wounded, and the women briefly fled into a nearby building which was surrounded and in which they were killed. This is the latest in a string of attacks by the DHKP, mostly in Istanbul, which reflects the group's eagerness to continue launching such attacks despite the group itself having relatively little influence in Turkey anymore. Founded in 1978, the DHKP was originally called the Revolutionary Left, but changed its name after a split within the group. The group has been listed as a terrorist organization by the U.S. State Department since 1997 and the European Union since 2001. Viva our fallen sisters, you will not be forgotten. The secret war now a reality. U.S., France, Italy, and Britain in Libya. Last week, major French newspaper Le Monde reported that the French government is engaged in a secret war in Libya and has deployed special forces already. The Pentagon has also talked about its own presence in Libya, and Britain is understood to have some special forces there as well. The numbers keep growing, and other assets for a Western war in Libya, which officials have been publicly championing for months, are being moved into place. It's only a matter of time until the secret war becomes a public one, but how long? That's not clear, as leaked Italian documents confirm that they too are poised to send some ground troops across the Mediterranean, though officially the Italian Defense Ministry insists that there is no war room and that the conflict is awaiting the formation of a Libyan unity government. These nations have all been emphasizing the growth of the ISIS affiliate in Libya and indicating that they believe the ISIS war needs to be expanded there. The selling of the merits of the war seems to be running concurrent to the actual deployments in this case, indicating how perfunctory the whole PR effort is. Again, the Obama regime and all his allies, more war, more death, more destruction coming up now in Libya. 20 Ukraine junta soldiers dead, more fighting between the government forces and Nazi right sector thugs. Exchange of fire between junta Ukraine, APU and nationalist Nazi forces in the area occupied by the Dzerzhinsk northwest of Gorlovka has caused the deaths of 20 Ukrainian troops. This was announced today at the briefing in the press center of Dan, Deputy Commander of Defense Ministry DPR, Edward Basudin. We continue to record facts of shelling between units of the Junta Ukraine APU and the Nationalists. So today in the area of the locality of Dzerzhinsk, there was another skirmish using heavy and small arms fire in which both sides suffered casualties. Reportedly from our sources, losses among the Ukrainian troops as a result of the internal conflict amounted to 20 dead, not counting the wounded. Loss of control. The facts reflect a lack of exchange of fire and no elemental control by the military command of subordinate parts and interaction between the units of the APU. Loss of control. Totally out of control. Earlier, Basudin reported that similar skirmishes between soldiers of the Ukrainian army and extremist militia. Guru, let's go to Serbia. A new coalition called People's Union, opposing Serbia's integration with the European Union and NATO, has been formed by the Third Serbia Party and the Narodna Mreža movement to take part in the country's upcoming parliamentary elections. In January, Serbian Prime Minister Aleksandar Vučić called a snap parliamentary election to be held on April 24th. Military and political neutrality must be declared as the absolute basis of Serbia's foreign policy, as it is the only way to stop the process of Euro-Atlantic integration. The co-founder of Narodna Mreža, Vladan Glisic, said the pro-EU orientation held by Serbia since 2000, which is upheld by the ruling Serbian Progressive Party, must be eliminated from Serbia's governing institutions. The politician, who is a presidential candidate for Serbia's 2012 election, stated that the integration with the European Union will not yield positive results for Serbia while surrendering its interest to Brussels. The People's Union will work towards creating institutions for strengthening ties with countries that will subject economic integration to political demands, according to Glisic. Serbia's elections come months after NATO invited the disputed territory of Montenegro, historically a part of Serbia, to join the military bloc. Podgorica accepted the invitation the following day. The decision triggered protests in the capital, with more than 5,000 opponents taking to the streets. NATO bombed the tiny West Balkan states 17 years ago when Montenegro and Serbia were part of Yugoslavia. Viva Assad, Syrian army crushing everything in its path, smashing the Obama moderate rebels to pieces. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, Syrian military forces advanced toward Kobani Hill in the coastal Latakia province. The hill is held by a rebel coalition dominated by Al-Qaeda's Nusra Front and overlooks their town of Jazira al-Shogor. Rebels involved in the defense of the hill implied the move was a violation of the ceasefire, though the ceasefire explicitly excludes Nusra and ISIS and allows everyone to continue attacking them. Jazira al-Shogor is in the Idlib province, which is dominated more or less entirely by Nusra-led coalition, and the town closest to Latakia province, meaning it is likely to be the first target of the Syrian offensive into Idlib. Nusra's close ties with the rebels groups the U.S. considers moderate was seen as a big obstacle to the ceasefire in the first place, as Nusra has a presence in a lot of these rebel territories too, meaning attacks targeting them could span territory that was ideally to be a part of the ceasefire. So far, however, that's largely not happened, and Syria has launched limited offensives, seemingly targeting only the territory which was dominated by Nusra forces, leaving hope that the truce can hold through peace talks scheduled for next week. And now my co-host Natalia with some more news.
Spring event trade fair in the capital of the DPR. Spring honey fair was opened on the 1st March in the heart of the DPR's capital, in the Park Sokol. There is a big variety of quality and useful honey production at the fair trade. Friendly salesmen tell you everything about honey and you will try. Personally, I, from edition of Novorossia today, visited today this wonderful, tasty place. However, Ukrainian armed forces conduct regular shelling of suburbs of Donetsk and settlements of the DPR. People bring to the capital of our republic production prepared by them, and they sell by affordable price. Today is the 3rd day. It is necessary to point out that many people choose and buy honey. It is possible to buy seeds also. To my mind, from all kinds of honey, the most delicious is honey on wild herbs, and the salesman said it is very healthy. Tomorrow is the last day. Hurry up to buy a jar with honey for you and your relatives. Strange news from Ukraine. Funny Ukrainian authorities, as usual, try to blame Russia in aggression in attitude to Donbass people. Yesterday, head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Pavel Klimkin, announced that Russia is guilty of 9,000 casualties in Donbass. It is very strange because he didn't mention where refugees from Donbass departed to look for the shelter, and the amount confirmed by the United Nations organization that more than 1,300,000 people from Donbass are now in the territory of Russian Federation, and altogether Ukrainians are more than 2 million, about 2 million and a half people in the territory of Russian Federation. Not only refugees from Donbass, but also people from other regions who looked for better life and who didn't want to pay service in Ukrainian army departed to Russia. It is obvious that so-called Russian aggression is only safety of Ukrainian authorities.
Heavy battle as ISIS Turkish scum forces lose over 200 crossing border from Turkey. YPG rips Erdogan terrorist forces. ISIS attacked the town of Tel Abyad on the Syrian-Turkish border. Fighting raging for several days. The Kurdish YPG is claiming victory, but a costly one, claiming over 200 people were killed in the fighting there. YPG official Redur Jalili reported 140 ISIS fighters were killed in the battle, along with 43 YPG fighters. 23 civilians were also slain in the course of the fighting over the key border crossing. Initial reports were that some of the ISIS fighters who attacked Tel Abyad crossed into from the Turkish side of the border. U.S. airstrikes were launched around the area over the weekend, aiming to stall the ISIS advance. The YPG seized Tel Abyad back in June and has held it in the face of several offenses by ISIS since. The town is the most convenient border crossing into Turkey from the ISIS capital of Raqqa, and its loss has forced ISIS to use more roundabout paths. Everyone, as always, I stress, be safe out there, be alert, have a great weekend, be safe, and see you on Monday. Bye-bye, folks.